If you wish to achieve what few ever touch, you must do what few are willing to do. And often what they are unwilling to do is not beyond their skill, not beyond their reach, not beyond their ability, but beyond their comfort. That is the line where success is drawn, not in talent, not in luck, but in the simple, consistent, unwavering decision to do what must be done, even when it hurts. Pain is not your enemy. Pain is a messenger. Pain says, "Here lies the edge of your current power." Most men turn away when they hear that voice. They retreat. They make excuses. They wait for things to get easier. But the successful man, the one who lives by law, the one who thinks with intention, the one who governs himself, he walks toward it. Because he knows that beyond pain is power. That pain is the gatekeeper to growth, and that the pain of discipline is the prelude to the reward of destiny. If you only do what feels good, you will only live as average. If you only act when it is convenient, you will never discover what you're truly made of. The great secret of all high achievement is this. Success does not come to the man who is fearless. It comes to the man who moves forward despite the fear, despite the resistance, and despite the discomfort. To do what successful people do, you must make decisions without consulting your emotions. Your feelings are not designed to build your future. They are designed to keep you comfortable. But comfort is not the environment of greatness. Greatness lives in the pressure. It lives in the friction. It lives in the moments when you want to stop but choose to continue. The pain of discipline is the price of admission. The early mornings, the late nights, the repetition, the silence, the effort that no one applauds, the sacrifices no one sees, that is what forms the foundation. That is what hardens the character. And that is what the world feels when you finally arrive. You must stop negotiating with pain. Stop reasoning with it. Stop asking it to leave. Welcome it as a builder. Ask it, "What are you here to teach me?" Ask it, "What must I strengthen so you are no longer needed?" Because once you learn the lesson, the pain transforms into power. You must do what is required, not what is comfortable. That is the creed of those who rise. They rise not because the task is easy, but because they have trained themselves to move regardless of ease. Their commitment is stronger than their excuse. Their discipline is louder than their doubt. And you may wonder, how do I build that kind of discipline? The answer is simple. You begin with one small decision. You do what you said you would do. You do it when it's hard. You do it when it's late. You do it when no one is watching. You do it when you're tired. And every time you keep your word to yourself, you place a brick in the foundation of belief. And belief, when built on discipline, becomes unstoppable force. Most men wait to feel ready. But readiness is a lie. The feeling never comes. You must move first, and the feeling follows. The man who acts without waiting is the man who leads. He becomes a man of action, not merely a man of thought. And the world follows those who move, not those who merely plan. To do what successful people do, even when it hurts, you must redefine the pain. You must see it not as a warning, but as a signal of growth. When your muscles burn in training, they are expanding. When your focus sharpens through fatigue, your endurance deepens. When your schedule tests your resolve, your identity is being fortified. This is the realm of high performance. This is the internal workshop where champions are carved. Not in the moments of applause, but in the moments of silence. Not when it's easy, but when every part of you wants to quit. Because what you do then defines everything. That moment, when quitting seems logical, is the gateway. The man who steps through it becomes unrecognizable to his former self. Success is not won through flashes of intensity. It is won through repeated sacrifice, through deliberate, painful repetition, through the refusal to break, through the habit of persistence. It is built in the moments that hurt and the decision to continue anyway. And when you begin to live this way, your identity shifts. You no longer see yourself as fragile. You see yourself as capable. You no longer shrink in discomfort. You grow through it. You no longer fear pain. You understand it. There is a mindset that governs the successful. It is not unique to the gifted. It is available to anyone who chooses it. That mindset says, I do what is required. I do it when it's hard. I do it when it's painful. I do it until it becomes natural. And I do it again. You must stop wishing for easier paths. You must stop praying for lighter burdens. Instead, ask for stronger shoulders. Ask for greater resilience. Ask for deeper resolve. And then go to work. Because wishing changes nothing. But doing, especially doing what is uncomfortable, that is the seed of transformation. Do not wait for motivation. Motivation is a luxury. Discipline is a necessity. And discipline is born in the furnace of inconvenience. When your emotions scream for escape, but your spirit whispers, continue that whisper as the voice of the man you are becoming. You must listen to him. He is the one who wakes up before the world. He is the one who trains when others sleep. He is the one who studies while others waste time. He is the one who builds while others wait. And he is forged not in comfort but in pain. Pain is not your enemy. Pain is your rite of passage. It separates the many from the few. It proves to the world, and more importantly to you, that you can be trusted with greatness. You cannot have strength without struggle. You cannot have mastery without monotony. You cannot have legacy without labor. Every man who has accomplished anything of substance has walked through fire, not once, but repeatedly. And what gave him power was not immunity to pain, but the decision to rise through it. So what will you do when the path gets heavy? When your back aches and your mind doubts? When the applause is gone and all that remains is the next rep, the next step, the next breath? Will you stop? Or will you smile and say, this is what I came for? Because the moment you begin to embrace the pain is the moment the pain begins to mold you. Pain sharpens. Pain refines. Pain clears out the unnecessary and reveals the essential. When you do what successful people do, even when it hurts, you align yourself with every law that governs growth. You align with perseverance. You align with courage. You align with power. You must no longer view pain as interruption. It is instruction. And the lesson is simple. Do it anyway. Do it with a tired mind. Do it with an aching body. Do it with doubt in the background and faith in the foreground. Because on the other side of that decision lies a strength the old you has never known. And when you live this way, daily, habitually, unapologetically, you become a man of uncommon force. Not because the world gave you ease, but because you chose to rise above the voice that said stop. This is the inner architecture of success. It is not glamorous. It is not public, but it is powerful. You build it in the moment. You say, one more. You reinforce it in the moment you say, again. You complete it in the moment you say, even now I do it anyway. That is the man the world respects. That is the man the world rewards. That is the man who becomes inevitable. The reason most men never taste greatness is because they flee from the very thing that forges it. They run from pain. They negotiate with discomfort. They believe the lie that the presence of struggle is a sign to stop, when in truth it is the invitation to become. The men who rise, the ones who separate themselves from the crowd, are not men who escape hardship. They are men who choose to embrace it deliberately. You cannot pray for strength and then run from the test. You cannot desire mastery and then avoid the discipline. You cannot wish for transformation and yet resist the tools that mold you. What separates the successful is not inspiration, it is endurance. It is the daily decision to continue when nothing around you applauds your effort. It is the unwavering commitment to press forward when the emotion to quit is stronger than the will to stay. Do what successful people do even when it hurts, because that's the only time it counts. It's easy to act when you're excited. It's easy to move when you're praised. But when the spotlight fades, when the routine dulls, when the pressure rises and there is no visible reward, what will you do then? That is when identity is formed. That is where the line is drawn between the dreamer and the builder. You must develop a relationship with pressure. Do not flinch at its arrival. Welcome it. Train with it. Grow through it. For the man who refuses to break in pressure becomes a man who leads in peace. His movements carry weight because they were born in fire. His voice holds certainty because it has been tested in silence. His walk carries direction because he has learned to move even when the path was unclear. Pain is not chaos. It is structure. It is the exact environment required for expansion. And if you lean into it with intention, it reveals parts of you that comfort could never reach. Your resilience, your clarity, your drive. These are not born in easy moments. They are pulled from the soul in the fire of repetition, in the trenches of training, in the long, thankless hours of personal development when no one claps and no one watches. That's where the real man is built. And the only way you get there is by doing what successful people do even when every part of you wants to rest. And here's the truth. Successful people hurt too. They get tired. They feel doubt. They face rejection. But they don't stop. They have simply trained themselves to move through it. They've made it a habit. They've made it automatic. They've made it a law in their life. I do what is required regardless of how I feel. This is what separates the professional from the amateur. The professional does the work. The amateur explains why he didn't. The professional trains when the body resists. The amateur seeks the path of least resistance. The professional shows up every day. The amateur shows up when it's fun. Which one are you becoming? You cannot simply study what successful people do. You must mirror what they do, especially when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's boring, especially when it's inconvenient, because it's in those exact moments that your old self dies and the new self, the man of power, of direction, of purpose, is born. No man who ever became great did so without sacrifice, without discipline, without learning how to sit in pain and extract wisdom from it. Pain is not the punishment, it is the passage, it is the price. And the man who refuses to pay will never inherit the reward. You must stop asking if it's hard and start asking, is it worth it? Because what you build in those difficult hours becomes the foundation of a life that cannot be moved. While others collapse when stress appears, you remain. While others fold under pressure, you operate. While others delay, you decide. That is the difference between a man who watches the world change and a man who creates the change. And here's what you'll discover. The more you train yourself to act through pain, the less it controls you. It becomes background noise. You feel it, but you're no longer owned by it. Your identity evolves. You begin to see yourself not as a man who needs ease, but as a man who performs regardless. And soon others will see it too. They'll notice how you walk with confidence, not because you've had it easy, but because you've endured. They'll feel your presence in the room. Not because you demand attention, but because your energy carries evidence. They will see your results and wonder how they appeared, not knowing the hours of discipline you invested while no one was looking. You must decide to become that kind of man. Do not wait to feel ready. Start now. Show up to your goal with sore legs. Speak your vision with a trembling voice. Write your goals with tired hands. Train with the weight of yesterday still on your back. Act through the doubt. Work through the fatigue. Lead through the silence. Because the man who acts despite pain becomes the man who commands the future. He earns respect not by demanding it, but by living the standard every single day. This is the true meaning of mental toughness, not the absence of struggle, but the refusal to let struggle dictate your outcome. You must build your mind to say, yes, it hurts, and I'm doing it anyway. You must rewire your emotions to believe that difficulty is not a stop sign, it is a green light. It means go deeper, dig further, expand. The world is full of people waiting to feel strong before they move. But the man who moves before he feels strong is the one who becomes strong. Because action is the antidote. Repetition is the training ground. And consistency, especially under pressure, is the forge. It is not just about doing what others do. It's about doing it longer, harder, and with more intensity. Even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. Because that's when it matters. That's when your old self says, stop, and your new self whispers, keep going. And that whisper, that tiny voice, is your true self. You must listen, and you must respond not with words, but with motion. Do not be the man who needs ideal conditions to act. Be the man who creates results regardless of conditions. That's what successful people do. They win before the world notices. They train when no one's watching. They invest when others hesitate. And when they rise, people call it talent. But it was never talent. It was discipline in the dark. It was persistence in the pain. It was the habit of doing what others avoid. That habit can be yours. Not someday, not later, not when you feel like it, but now. Begin with the next task you want to delay. Do it. Complete it without excuse. Then do the next one. And the next. Stack the evidence. Build the rhythm. Earn the identity. And before long, the man who once struggled to start becomes the man who others look to for strength. Not because he's special, but because he simply refused to quit when it hurt. Because he chose to do what successful people do. Even when everything inside him screamed for comfort, he chose growth. Even when the body was weak, the mind said, one more. Even when it wasn't easy, he remembered, it's never supposed to be. Greatness is not found in ease. It's found in pressure. And you are ready for pressure, because pressure reveals you. And the world is waiting to meet the version of you that pressure is calling forth. Let it rise. Let him rise and do what must be done. Now, when you train yourself to act in pain, you begin to understand a truth that most men never realize. The greatest power in your life is not in what you feel, it is in what you decide. Feelings fluctuate. Moods rise and fall. But decisions, when forged in discipline, can remain unmoved. And when a man chooses to live by decision rather than emotion, he becomes his own master. There is a quiet strength in the man who no longer waits to be motivated. He does not need to be lifted. He does not need the world to cheer him on. He has built something stronger, integrity with himself. He has said, this is who I am, and I prove it with my actions, especially when they're uncomfortable. That man becomes rare, and the rare man becomes valuable. Do not underestimate the impact of doing what must be done while others stall. Every moment you press on through resistance, you're compounding strength. You are building more than just skill, you're building identity. That identity begins to speak for you. It enters rooms before you do. People feel it in your presence because it's built from the moments you did not compromise. The world cannot ignore a man whose life is forged in self-command. There are two types of men. One who looks for ways around the pain. Another who walks straight into it because he knows that inside the difficulty lies the material from which his future is made. The first man shrinks, the second expands. The first man complains. The second learns. The first waits for ease. The second turns pain into a ladder and climbs. You must become the second, because your calling will demand more than casual effort. It will require that you outlast the discomfort that takes most men out of the race. And that doesn't mean you must love pain. It means you must respect it. You must understand that pain, when faced deliberately, becomes the crucible through which your future is purified. And if you want to live at the level of those who succeed consistently, then you must think like them. They do not ask if it's hard. They ask if it's necessary. They do not run from discomfort. They run toward it, knowing that every step inside the storm reveals the man who deserves the harvest. To live at that level is to live above excuse. It is to live by law, not preference. It is to say to yourself every day, whether I feel like it or not, I will do what is required of me. That is the creed of the uncommon. That is the declaration of the successful. And when that line is drawn between those who act regardless and those who act only when inspired, you must decide which side you stand on. Let it be the side of resolve. Let it be the side where comfort no longer governs you. Let it be the side where discipline, pain, and repetition become the bricks you lay in silence. And those bricks, they become a foundation the world can't shake. People will come and go, opinions will change, conditions will vary. But the man who builds his life on the daily habit of doing what must be done, especially when it's hard, is the man who cannot be knocked over. And one day the world will look at that man and say, he's gifted, he's lucky, he's different, but you will know the truth. You will know it was earned in sweat, in silence, in those early hours and late nights where no one clapped and no one saw, but you showed up anyway. You will know that behind every visible success was 1,000 invisible victories over weakness. The repetition of showing up when it was inconvenient. The repetition of saying yes to the task when the mind screamed no. The repetition of standing tall in the face of resistance and saying, this is the way, because this is the way. It's not a shortcut. It's not a hack. It's not a secret. It is a way of living guided by principle, enforced by decision, and proven in action. And once you live this way long enough, the pain you once resisted becomes the fuel you rely on. You begin to crave the challenge. You begin to look forward to the difficult path. Not because it's pleasant, but because you know that every new level of pain brings with it a deeper version of who you are meant to become. That is what successful people understand. They know the weight is not in the way. It is the way. They do not avoid it. They build themselves beneath it. They do not shrink from responsibility. They grow into it. And over time, what once felt heavy becomes their new normal. That's how transformation happens. It's not sudden. It's layered. It's compounded in days that feel ordinary but are filled with extraordinary effort. It's developed in the quiet commitment to consistency when motivation has left the room. And make no mistake, you will be tested. You will be tested by delay. You will be tested by fatigue. You will be tested by failure. And in those moments, the only thing that will keep you standing is the identity you've built through doing what was painful. The strength will not come in the moment of test. It will come from the work you've already done. It will come from the habits already installed. It will come from the thoughts you've rehearsed, the routines you've lived, and the decisions you've made in solitude. So choose now. Choose to live in a way that honors the future you desire. Choose to act not as the man who complains about difficulty, but as the man who carries responsibility with honor. Let every action become a vote for the man who does what successful people do, even when it hurts. Let every choice become a declaration that you are not owned by how you feel, but led by what you've decided. Let every repetition become another line carved into your identity that says, I can be trusted to move when others freeze. Because in the end, the world does not remember the man who hesitated. It remembers the one who endured, the one who acted, the one who built in silence, the one who is shaped by difficulty, not broken by it. That can be you, but it begins not in a moment of glory, but in a moment of pressure. The next time you face resistance, remind yourself, this is the cost, and I am willing to pay it. The next time you want to quit, say, this is the work, and I am built for it. The next time you hear your excuses rising, respond with action. No argument, no delay, just movement. Because successful people don't wait for comfort. They move through the fire. They do what others won't. They train while others sleep. They act while others hesitate. They decide while others doubt. And that difference, that single consistent choice to act while it hurts, is the line between average and unstoppable. The line between wishing and achieving. The line between a life of regret and a life of legacy. Stand on the right side of that line. Live there. Train there. Build there. Repeat it until it becomes who you are. And soon the pain that once slowed you will become the very thing that elevates you. Not because you avoided it, but because you faced it again and again, until the world could no longer ignore what you had become. And so it is.